All right, awesome. What's going on, guys? First, thank you for joining us today. I'm Chris Silvio, pro wrestler, pro wrestling coach, pro wrestling brother, and all around pretty good dude. And this is my good buddy, Matt Sydal. Matt, what's going on, brother?
Matt Sydal, also pro wrestler, here to share some knowledge with you guys. It's exciting for me.
Yeah, Matt and I have been training wrestlers together for about 2 years. This is the first time we've actually worked together for a webinar. What I love about these is that we can connect with people from all over the world at the same time. We've had a lot of people hit both of us up that want to come down to Clearwater, Largo to train with us, but they live in Russia, they live in England, wherever, and it's kind of hard for them to get here to Largo. So we're going to do this and hopefully many more as a way to connect with all you guys.
But flights are cheap, so show up.
Yeah, bring your asses here.
No, hopefully this will inspire you to want to come join us in the ring. We'll do a lot of talking, but we'll also show some stuff in the ring too. We got to do it both ways, you know.
Yep. So you will get a lot of useful information that's going to help elevate you and further your career. But we're going to show you some of our individual techniques that make us stand out as wrestlers and coaches as well. And like Matt said, hopefully this does inspire some of you guys to actually get here in person. I want to shout out wrestler from Scotland, Leo King, aka Sam Wilson, who came and worked with us here, I think in April of last year, and he's just moving out here to Tampa now to join the program. So it works, and we're going to teach you how to make it work for you. But let's talk about how we got to where we are today. I'm going to give you a bit of my history. And Matt's going to give you a bit of his. One thing that I learned after a few years in wrestling is, I don't know if Matt's the same way, but when I first started, I knew I loved wrestling, but I really didn't know shit about how the business end worked. And I always thought magically one day somebody would just see me and take me somewhere around the world. WWE would come calling and say, "Hey, Chris Silvio, we found you." I learned pretty quickly that's not usually the way it works. And what I found worked for me is I had to take myself to where the action happens. I had to put myself in the way of opportunity. So after I came up in the Virginia, Mid-Atlantic area, and after doing independence for a few years there, I wanted more. I wanted something bigger. I worked my way into OVW through a tryout with Rip Rogers to join them when they were the developmental program for WWE. That's where I met this brother here, Matt Sydal. And so that kind of kick-started my career, taught me a lot about the business end. I used my knowledge from there to start working in places like Ring of Honor, Impact, doing a lot of overseas work. So one little tidbit I'll give you guys now, and we're going to discuss all this cool stuff throughout the course of the webinar, is never be afraid to put yourself in the way of opportunity. I want to talk about overseas first, because a lot of you guys have asked me, what do we do to get noticed here, there? What do we do to get noticed overseas? And both of us can tell you this from experience. The first few times I got overseas, I had to put myself there. I reached out to all these people for opportunities, and I was an unproven commodity. I remember my first tour of the UK. I took myself out there and I only had 2 bookings. I funded it all myself. I maximized those. I did well. I networked. And then for probably the last 5 years, I've been flown to the UK and Europe for at least a few tours a year. But had I never invested in myself and did what I had to do to put myself in the way of opportunity, there's no telling, if I ever would have made it there or where my career has gone. I know, Matt, I know you rode in the car for 30 hours. I know the early part of your career was a lot of miles, a lot of hot dogs and handshakes. So tell them a little bit about what you did to get here today.
Yes, hello, greetings. My name is Matt Sydal. I grew up in St. Louis. I started wrestling when I converted my trampoline into a ring, because that's what kids do when you want to become a wrestler. I went on and started training at the local indie when I was still in high school, and in Missouri there's an there's a regulatory body that regulates wrestling, and at age 17, which was the first person ever, I was licensed to wrestle in Missouri. Went on to have a great career of getting powerbombed very frequently, all the time, by a bunch of angry men. That was wonderful. I learned a lot of lessons. From there, I actually started branching out NWA TNA opened up, and that they were the new hot federation where like all the craziest matches were happening. So I would just leave. I went to University of Missouri at Mizzou, and I would just go on Wednesdays to these, which is now Impact, to these shows on Wednesdays, and just show up and hang around backstage like a weirdo. And eventually we met a lot of people in the industry through there, and that's when I started wrestling for IWA Mid-South. Through that to Ring of Honor. Ring of Honor is what got me to Dragon Gate Pro Wrestling, and then I was doing wrestling for Dragon Gate in Japan when I ended up getting signed to WWE to start a unnamed cruiserweight division that I was the unofficial champion of the entire time I was there. There was never a match for it, nor it was just like kind of just an accepted thing. I think I was at WWE for a while, had a good run. I was tag team champions with Kofi. Then after that, I went back to Dragon Gate, wrestled there with Ricochet, started teaming with him. Then he and I went to New Japan together, and now we're here. And then I wrestled at Impact for a year. So I've been training. I did my first wrestling seminar, one of my first overseas tours, when I went to Germany. That was in 2006 five. But so I love sharing wrestling tips. My favorite thing about showing up to a wrestling event is getting in the ring before the show and possibly learning something new from someone else. So I've got lots of stuff to share, and I could tell you more about my journey and why,
Yeah, let's take it back, man.
But things cascade as quickly.
You said something interesting earlier. You talked about coming from St. Louis, Missouri. You would drive to the early Impact or TNA tapings, drive to IWA Mid-South, and you would just hang around Impact. How long of a drive was that for you?
So it would be 8 hours. Well, I would drive 4 hours to Delirious's house, and then he would drive the remaining 4 there. We'd go to the show. Sometimes if we were lucky, we'd get to job to Abyss. That was like the best case scenario. Then, I feel almost like I'm talking to you. I should be talking to the camera.
Talk to us both.
I can't.
We're all brothers.
Sorry, it's my first webinar. I want to pretend it's a podcast. It would make it much easier. But yeah, so it's 8 hours either way. And we drove the speed limit. I'm telling you, we drove the speed limit there and back, and it was a great place because wherever the best matches are happening is where the people who are going to be a part of the wrestling business for a long time end up. They're not in kind of run-by-night organizations. They're kind of really where the marquee matches are happening. And so that kind of just attracted us like moths to a flame. But being around that, we started getting a lot more knowledge than we could have gotten in St. Louis. When I showed up at my wrestling school, the pedigree that I had from backyard wrestling made me feel almost equal or superior than the people that I was training with, and sometimes even the guys that were trying to train me. So we had to put rubber to the road to find the place where the best people were, because it's accessible if you're willing to commit to it like that.
How long into your career would you say that it was before you started making those drives to TNA and to IWA Mid-South?
Yeah, it might have been a little early when I first started going to TNA. I was very
year in, 2 years in.
Oh yeah, 3 years in when I started showing up at NWA TNA. 3 to 5 years, and that's kind of when I started moving into IWA Mid-South about 5 years in, and that's where I really started to dig in deeper. That's where I was meeting with Chris Hero, Alex Shelley, Jimmy Jacobs, AJ Styles, Nigel McGuinness, Daniel Bryan, AJ Styles, Samoa Joe. All these guys are on the card, and the shows were just rocking and rolling. And wrestling in the Midwest is a really fun place to go. I love wrestling in Florida and plenty of other places, but we had a great support system. We had a lot of fans, but we were very respectful of our fans, and we had a great relationship with them. As wrestlers, you don't do a performance for them. You're doing a performance with the crowd, and those crowds really fueled my whole career. And I feel like when I wrestle in certain towns, because I put in the grassroots work and I shook every hand along the way, that's how I have the fan base I do now.
The reason I wanted to ask Matt about that, how long was he involved before he decided it was time to move from St. Louis? There's a point in time in every wrestler's career, in my opinion, and Matt, you can tell me if you agree or disagree, where you can't stay in one place for so long if you want to make a bigger picture of your career, if you want to get to the next level, if you want to learn new things. And that was something I had to learn the hard way. In my opinion, I spent about 3 years too long before I decided I wanted to go where the action was. Matt was smart enough to realize after 3 years, maybe it's about time I start working with these bigger and better guys and go to a higher level. So it took me a little bit longer to figure those things out and understand how to make money in this business, how to make a living off this business, and how to make it work. But one thing I can tell you guys is a lot of people ask me, how do I branch out? And we'll cover a lot of this. How do I get from here to there? You have to get out. You have to get out of your comfort zone. You have to fail. You have to drive. You have to sleep in your car. You have to listen to people. You have to pick people's brains. If somebody is better than you, you respect them as a performer. Watch them. Ask them, why did you do what it is that you do? Do everything you can to get yourself onto their level. I know sometimes it's really scary leaving your cocoon, your comfort zone, your home promotion, whatever it is, and I get that. But if you really want to make a national and international presence, I feel that's something that you absolutely have to do. And I think, Matt, you might agree with that assessment.
Yeah, and I mean, that's after you've put in all the work at your school. Like, once you've done all that, then you can go sleep in your car, but you still have to have, like, when you're working in your local school with somebody, you're working on not just your performance, but the other people you're working with, and you get an act that's really good, and you take that on the road, and if you have something that's unique and of high quality, people are going to want to see that in other places. And so that's how you can branch out, because you never do it alone. You have to do it with somebody else. I didn't just branch out on my own. I branched out with Delirious. Like, there's no way around it. That's why it was Jimmy Jacobs and Alex Shelley, Colt Cabana and CM Punk. People come up together, the whole Dragon Gate, Toryumon, like a group of guys that trained together, like invoked a new style and brought things to the next level. Like, that's why the Young Bucks are so good, because they've been together for forever. You know what I mean?
So I like that you brought that up, because one of the biggest tools you can have in this business is the ability to network, the ability to create relationships, the ability to make friends with people. For instance, I met Matt over 10 years ago, and we just casually knew each other, working in the same place, got along fine. 10 years later down the road, we hooked up, we're working together, doing good business, we're friends, and it leads to more opportunities for us both. So it's very important to network and create as many positive relationships as you can with people all around the world. So let's talk a little bit more about getting noticed, and we have a few questions. I'll get to a couple of those questions to start with, and it relates to bookings, getting noticed. So we got a question from Max Wilson about promotions with bad reputations. You've been offered a well-paid spot from that company. They're offering to pay you up front, pay you well, etc. They have a very bad reputation in my local area. What do we think about that? See for themselves or don't risk it? Matt, I'll let you answer that one first.
Bub, just give me a call. Come on, we need more details. That's so vague. I mean, I hate local wrestling malarkey. So, I don't understand why a promotion would have a bad reputation. But I'm the things that matter to me is mainly health and safety. So it's like, is the ring safe? Is the person you're wrestling safe? Can you trust the people you're going to be in the ring with? And can you trust you never want to be in a locker room where you can't leave your wallet in your bag, go to the ring and come back and worry about it not being there when you get back. I mean, so judge it based on that. There's my scale.
Yeah, so what I would say on that is, right now I kind of look at quality over quantity. Sometimes you will take a payday. It's just the way it is. I've done it. Matt's probably done it himself. Sometimes you'll take a payday. You might need the money. This is a business, and you should get to the point where you are making money. That's the goal, right? It's called professional wrestling because it should become your profession, means of your income. But I would say, like what Matt said, safety is paramount. Make sure that you're not putting yourself in jeopardy. I see a lot of independent wrestlers do some very, very dangerous, outlandish things, and it's for little compensation and often little reward. I don't want to mention any names. It's a younger wrestler that I like that seems like a nice enough person. I saw they got seriously injured doing something exceptionally dangerous at an event where I'm sure they were probably not paid more than $100, and I would guarantee they were probably paid less than that. And they were injured to the point where their career could have been over. Luckily, it was not, but you got to really consider that safety. And what you do in the ring, you have to consider the fact that we all have a bump card, and I'm going to go into details on this a little bit later in our broadcast, but you have to be safe. Not only work somewhere that's safe, where you know the ring's not going to hurt you and the athletes aren't going to hurt you, but you really have to consider keeping yourself safe. And wrestling is a lot of assessing risk versus reward. If I'm on the last match of WrestleMania, maybe that's the time I'm going to take the biggest risks of my career. If I'm on the third match of my local independent at the VFW Hall for $75, I might want to consider not doing anything that's going to put the next 10 years of my life in jeopardy. Anything to add on that?
No, man, that's great. I mean, like that's exactly.
Awesome. So our next question we're going to move on to here. It looks like Max had a few questions. Is it possible to explain roughly what is the best to do in certain matches on the card, i.e. second, third, fourth, etc.? I want to start with this one because I like this, and then Matt, I'll throw it off to you on that. It depends on what the promotion is and what the promoter wants from you. For events that I personally book, I like to keep cards short, 5-6 matches tops. I like to give the audience just enough to go, wow, that was really cool. But don't keep them long enough to where their asses start hurting from sitting in the seat for 3 hours, and give them something to want more on the next event. So if you're promoting your own shows, that's the way that I do it. And it's worked well for me, and I would recommend that. Don't give them too much. You don't have to give the whole farm away in one shot. If you do good business, you got many shows to go from there. The old school tidbit on this is the way that wrestling was taught to me was that everyone should know their place on the card. So the first match, some early general rules I was taught by some old school trainers were the first match may not be the place for 1,000 false finishes or dives to the floor, big bumps to the floor. The purpose of the first match, the way it was taught to me, was established wrestling. So let's say that the audience, somebody's watching for the first time. The first match should educate them on what we're doing in this ring, why we do the things that we do, and what do the rules mean? Why is the referee counting? Why is the referee stopping them in the ropes? The first match should kind of be an overview of what this thing of pro wrestling is. So I recommend when you can work your place on the card. I believe it's always important to leave some things to the main event, because there's a lot of stuff we see in 2020 wrestling. We see some great moves. We see some great high spots. But what I don't want to see is them becoming such a huge thing where everything's a big move and a high spot that there's nothing left for the main event, and they have to raise the bar even higher and risk further injury. But some shows will tell you just go in there and kill it every match. They want as if it was the last match. So it really depends on the promotion you work for. So I recommend ask the promoter what they want specifically from you and your role in the match, and cater your match accordingly. Matt, what do you think? First, second, third match, fourth, any difference for you? How would you handle that?
Well, I feel like that's one of these things where it's important to be working for people that you respect and admire, because if you're a young wrestler and you're working for a promoter and a promotion where you respect and admire them, you can trust them to only put you in the situations that you do belong in. If you're a young wrestler, you probably belong in match 1. I don't know if you belong in match 2, because maybe that's the comedy match and you're not that funny. It just, and is match 3 a 4-way dance? What is it continue? Is there a storyline? It's all these things are individually solved, and the best way to learn about them is through shadowing at a local organization where you have heard positive reviews about how they treat the people the lowest among them, and then that way you can kind of just through observation, the same way like a lot of wrestling is taught one-on-one through that direct observation. You see what works. You see, okay, if match 1 is this concise, abbreviated bout where we kind of establish a drop kick hurts, it knocks the guy down. We figured out the way we've begun the show. because the bottom line is the fans pay their hard-earned money. They work all week. They come here, they schedule time, they drive through traffic, they wait in line, then they pay $10 for the autograph, then they sit down and wait. And they get nachos, and they wait, and they go wait in the bathroom, they wait in line there, and then they finally, like, they give them a show. And so it's time to go. Like, the show, it's our duty to give them the best show for them. So sometimes it requires a little bit of selflessness when you're earlier in the card. If you're match 3 or 4, because you could go 25 minutes is actually great, because a good promoter will know that he can count on you if his main eventer gets sick, has a car breaks down, whatever, and then you might elevate yourself. You don't want to elevate yourself by, like, kind of doing the act of the main event earlier on. What you want to do is do a very good job at your role, and then you really will impress the people who are the ones giving you the next opportunities, and they will groom you, like, they will continue to prepare you for that moment when it is your turn. But there's no shame in wrestling in playing your role, giving the fans a good job, going home healthy, happy, safely. High five and get to the back. That's the beauty of wrestling. You win when you lose.
Yes. And I really like that assessment. Knowing when to scale it back a little bit, when to save some stuff for the main event, when not to give people too much, because there is a line that you have to walk. Like we said earlier, some shows will tell you, just go in there and do whatever you want. And if that's what the promoter tells you, it's his show. So if there's any doubt, always just ask. That would be my best advice to you. One thing I recommend is watching every single match. One thing I see in wrestling a lot is I see a lot of the same moves and transitions and spots repeated throughout the shows. And this is from the smallest of independents to some very big shows, where it seems as if the other wrestlers did not know that the matches prior to them had the same things planned. For instance, I will use the tope and the suicide dive. I've seen shows where there is that move in every single match, from the first until the last match. So we'll talk some about creativity. We'll lead into our next topic, but just watch. Do something a little different. If there are 10 guys, let's just take this example. Let's say there are 8 matches on a show, and all those matches, 8 guys did the same move, which was the suicide dive. What is better about yours? What makes yours different to theirs? These are the little details that make performers stand out. So think of something different. If you had a suicide dive planned in your match, and you noticed the first 2 matches before you did it, well, maybe consider doing something else that's different. Maybe you tease that, because the audience is now conditioned to thinking that move's going to happen. You tease it and think of a clever way to take it away. Or just simply, if you must do a dive, which, Matt, I'd love to hear your opinions on dives in wrestling. If you must do a dive, just do a different one. The way that I book any card that I ever produce is I want to know exactly what big spots people are doing, what the dives are, because I don't want my matches repeating the same high spots. So if I know my match 2 is doing a moonsault to the floor, I definitely don't want to see it done in match 4. What can you add to that, Matt?
Yeah, so I'll tell you a concrete example. This weekend I was up in Defy for Defy Wrestling. I wrestle there, but I'm not involved. Like, I don't know I'm not in the management side. I'm just only a wrestler, so I just show up and do the show. So but I had a couple ideas for my match. I found out we're 4th. We're right before intermission. Main event of the first half. That's how we look at it. You know what I mean? That's the mentality. Is we're gonna throw down. We're gonna have a banger. But I wanted to do something different than the other matches, and so I had to, hunt down Matt and open up the sheet from his hand and say, "Please, I need to see what's going on. What are these guys doing? How does this match end? Is there anything extra? Oh, well, match 3, there's a little bit of aftermath, and then it goes into this. Okay, so I've got 2 guys that are in a unit with me, and so I had to find out what's going on in their match, so that way it can roll over into my match with M-Dog. But so when I found out we were the 4th match, and I found out kind of what was going on the rest of the night, I decided, oh yeah, we're going to do a hot start. And when we were going around the entrance to the ring, after a bit of jaw-jacking, we started our match off with a front flip dive. We started the match off with it. We didn't do any other ones after that. Well, actually, I did do a fall to the floor, but I got hit off the top rope, and I fell onto the guys that I'm with. So
And you chose that decision because it was different to everything that had taken place prior to.
Right. Every other match had started with a tie-up or old fashioned, like, okay, this one headlock. They had been doing the traditional thing. And then when I looked on the piece of paper, I just had to ask, like, okay, the first match, they were doing a bit of gaga, but they were doing quality wrestling. And it's just like, man, how are we going to be different if these guys go? And I mean, we could have done a very good job. And I'm not going to say we couldn't have just outdone them wrestling, because I do believe, whatever, me and M-Dog could have gone out there and just wrestled. And I mean, whatever, I believe we would have had a better match.
Sure.
But I wanted to give the fans something different. I wanted, because they want action. That's what this crowd wants. The Defy crowd, they're rabid, but they want action. They don't want guys they had seen the holds. And I didn't want to spend too much time on that in the beginning, especially. I wanted to kick it off hot.
So that's a great example of knowing your audience and knowing what they've seen and being different. I'm sure that match stood out from the pack. I don't want you guys to ever think of wrestling as this linear thing where we're going to give you a set of 10 rules and you must follow these. Every match you must do this or your match sucks, etc. Matt started his match with a flip dive and it worked. One of my favorite matches I've had was with a young wrestler named Tyler Matrix. I started that match by jumping him at the bell and powerbombing him. We built the story around this and about him coming back and me cutting all these corners, and we told a beautiful story that had the whole crowd into it. We came in and out of some great big moves, transitions, but it was different. Nobody saw that coming. So you can, if you do it the right way and you understand psychology, you can start with things like that the same way you can start with a wrist lock, hammer lock. Somebody mentioned they don't see a lot as much chain wrestling anymore. I think chain wrestling is super important. You should know your fundamentals and the right time to chain wrestle. But to the point we're making now, if the first 5 matches have done a bunch of chain wrestling, you go out and present something different. If you're on a show where everybody's doing all these craziness and you know that you're really good technical wrestler, stick with your bread and butter.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it really boils down to this, right? If you're a wrestler, you're a wrestling fan, and you have your favorite wrestlers. At a certain point, you would want to be that. So put yourself in the third row, looking at the ring, and imagine yourself in your gear, standing right there, and be the coolest wrestler you can be. Whatever you think that would be, that's the guy you should go out and be. Like, whatever's going to make that person, that's you, and your friends friends, pay $20 to sit down and watch, that's who you need to be. Like, you can think about it, the heel and face, and try and use all these things, but it's like, it's, you gotta tap into that special aspect.
And no, I like that. And I'm going to challenge you guys right now. Everybody that's watching this, I'll give you a moment. I want you to bust out a pen and paper. And I want you to write down, would you pay money to see yourself wrestle? And be honest. You don't have to tell anyone. You don't have to tell me. You don't have to tell Matt.
Even $10.
Just be honest. And there's a good chance, I hope the answer is yes, but there's a really good chance that answer is no. If the answer is no, that's all right. That's why you're here with us today. That's why you're learning. So that's your place to start. What would I do in order to want to pay to see myself? You have to understand that you guys are wrestlers. We're the draw. We're the reason they come to see this thing. People go to the movies because they want to see a movie, right? But they also go because there are certain angles, like, for instance, the Avengers, or certain stars that they go to see, a la Leonardo DiCaprio. So yeah, sometimes people will go see wrestling just because it reads wrestling on the marquee, but more often than not, it's the actual wrestlers that are going to draw them in with their personalities.
And literally by their mouth, by word of mouth, by being in that town and telling someone, hey, I'm wrestling down the street, you can come watch this. If you're not starting there, then no one's going to ever book. If you can't meet somebody at the gas station and get them to come watch you wrestle, no one's going to pay you to wrestle. No one's going to want to see you wrestle, because why would they? If you can convince somebody that you don't know, a stranger at the gas station, oh yeah, hey, what do you do? Yeah, I wrestle down the street. Oh yeah, here on Thursdays. Yeah, oh, it kicks ass. This is what we do, and you can lay it down for them that way. And you can be that's that certain kind of charm to talk them into the building literally means talking them from where they are walk to that building. It's not necessarily a promo between you and the guy you're feuding with. It's a literal promo, a human interaction, a one-on-one interaction. And if you have enough of those, you can draw 100 people.
And that is such a great point. When I run my local events in Florida or my team in Italy, I write into my financial projections and the draw that I'm expecting. Each local person, let's say Matt's a talent of mine and he lives in town, I'm expecting a minimum of 5 to 10 fans to come to see each particular local wrestler. Think about this. If you can't get 5 or 10 people to spend $10 or $20 to watch you wrestle, then how the hell are you supposed to convince millions of people to watch you wrestle on Vince McMahon's television program or AEW's television program or Ring of Honor's television program? This is where you really have to start thinking like a businessman or a businesswoman, business person, and figure these things out. Would you pay to see yourself? And if that answer is no, get your ass in the workshop and figure out what you need to change to make you want to see yourself.
Yeah, it's hard, but like you look at a guy like Sammy Guevara, he'd be a good example of a guy to watch. He's a guy who's gets himself out there. He does all the work. He kicks ass in the ring. I mean, you know, there's a lot of guys that you can see that just made themselves by their own hard work. And I mean, that's what it boils down to. If you're willing to dig in and do the work, if you're willing to make the miles, you also have to do the dirt on the road and online with media and producing media and content for people.
Yeah, and wrapping this up into, bookending this with getting more bookings and transitioning these. One of my students, Fabu, I have a love-hate relationship with Fabu, but he's a fantastic wrestler. Matt and I both work with him. He's young and learning. I had a friend in town from the Northeast that needed a ride to a show, and it was 4 hours away. I called Fabu and I said, Fabu, what are you doing on Saturday? Do you have plans? He said, no, I don't. I said, here are your instructions. Pick up my friend from Tampa Airport, take him 4 hours to this booking. Introduce yourself to the promoter, tell him you're there and you're willing to help with whatever he needs. I smartened the promoter up. I said, hey, my boy Fabu is driving this talent there for you. Anything you need, let him know. Well, Fabu is now a regular on this show and it's one of the better shows in Florida. Something as simple like that as going there, putting yourself in the way of opportunities, turns into more opportunities. I reconnected with Matt actually at Impact Wrestling, of all places, a couple years back. And I had 2 days of work scheduled. I showed up to work on day 3. I tell this story to a lot of my wrestlers. I wasn't paid to be there on day 3, but I showed up ready to go and I kicked ass on day 1 and 2. So they said, hey, Chris, you're here. You want to work a match? Fuck yeah. I worked on day 3, day 4, and made enough money to cover all my bills just because I showed up and put myself in the way of opportunity. I have a good friend that recently has been around and his name is very well known, but recently literally put himself in the way of an opportunity with the large national promotion on his own dime to get himself where he needed to be, because sometimes that's just what it takes to get there. Anything you'd like to add on that, Matt?
Yeah, I mean, nobody's going to bring you there. Bring yourself there, and then you'll get to stay. I mean, that's the idea. If you just get around wherever you want to be in wrestling, you just start getting as close to it as you can, and you can see where all these guys come from. There's plenty of routes to the top, but it is important to wisely pick who you want to be like, because you can't do everything. You can't be like everyone. So it's just important, it's okay to kind of go pick a direction and go that way. Like, let's say, like, not everybody wants to go to NXT. Maybe you want to go to Japan. You know what I mean? You can pick that direction too. Like, getting to the biggest stage is also not the most important thing. Getting to the stage you want to be on is what's important. If you love DDT the most, then like what you're aiming for, you gotta think about what other people are talking. You gotta put everything in perspective and context. I think we're talking a lot of really universal things, but when it comes to wrestling, things vary so much. I mean, it's just
I totally get what you're saying, man. And I want to dig a little bit into the creativity of this, because you and I are both two really creative dudes, but our brains operate on different frequencies, which is what makes us such an awesome team. because we are very similar, but we are so different in our approach. One thing that I respect a lot about Matt as a performer, and I'm not just saying this because he's my buddy and he's doing a webinar with me, I watched Matt's development. I remember watching Matt on Wrestling Society X. I remember watching him on TNA. I remember cheering him on when he left OVW and I saw him on ECW. We were always happy to see one of our own get to that next level. One thing I could say about Matt is that if you want to use the word revolutionize or something like that, Matt's very humble, so he won't say these kind of things. But Matt always brought something different to his game in the ring, his creativity, and that was something that got him noticed in a lot of places, which is likely why you've seen Matt Sydal in so many different promotions. So Matt, I'd like you to talk a little bit about that, the creative process that you do as a wrestler to come up with, your moves, your gimmick, how it is you do what you do. Can you give them any advice on that?
Well, when I started wrestling, the general rule of thumb was, if you did a wrestling move that another veteran did, they had the full authority to beat you up. I'm not joking. If you did, they had the full right to kick your ass. That was kind of how wrestling was. And then if you did something close to one of their moves, if you did it like I did to hook the leg this way, you hook the leg this way, 100 push-ups right now. These are the kind of things that would happen back in the day. I mean, so like when I came to WWE and I did a jump knee, and Punk heard it was similar to his knee in the corner, it was like there was a stress there, and I had to be like, whoa, listen, pal, hey, listen, I'm jumping up and hitting him in the teeth. You're doing it in the corner. Like these are different things. But so I always, when I started wrestling, I also heard this weird quote from a musician and just about how being original is really important, and how sometimes if you spend all your time watching other people and doing other people and taking in their stuff, you'll be more like them. So, I kind of, when I'm thinking about my stuff, I kind of shut that out and just kind of try and be influenced by what I would want to do if I was a wrestler on stage.
What you would want to see from a fan's perspective.
Yeah, what I would want to see from a fan's perspective. And sometimes it changes because sometimes I like different wrestling. And if I was tough, I'd do hardcore wrestling because that's kind of my favorite.
Right. And what I like that point, what a lot of people do, and this, you've probably heard this before, is that you take something that you like and you make it your own and you make it work. Sometimes a lot of people go a little bit too overboard with that. So they end up being a Bret Hart light or a Shawn Michaels light, just for example, where they have these wrestlers that they look up to so much that they end up just kind of doing that person's act instead of creating their own act. So that's something that I really recommend you figuring out. It's okay to be inspired. I was inspired by so many guys, Savage, Hart, Sabu, Terry Funk, I mean, you name it. But I never wanted anyone to watch my match and say, oh, he's ripping off one of those guys. And I take pride in my work and the fact that my work is my own. I like to think Matt is very good at creating different physical scenarios and transitions and spectacular feats that he was doing at a time that no one else was. My creativity, I like to think more in terms of the character presentation. How am I going to stand apart? Not just the moves, but how is my presentation, my package, my persona, the way I move, the way I walk, the way I talk, how is that going to stand out from everyone else on the show? Right now, a big thing you're going to see at the level of independent wrestling that likely most of you are is a lot of guys that dress similar and do similar things and work similarly. So step one, I would say, is start thinking of a way to separate yourself from the pack. If you're standing in a line next to 10 wrestlers, and for instance, WWE's looking at you, and they're going to go, eeny, meeny, miny, mo. You want to be the one that catches their eye because you're different. In pro wrestling, different sells. In pro wrestling, different is what makes you money.
That's Alex Shelley advice. He's a pretty regular guy, but he would always dye his hair something crazy because he said, hey, listen, I'm a pro wrestler. I wouldn't do this if I wasn't a pro wrestler. But I'm also the same way. I'm a naturally shy person. I'm not looking for attention. But because I'm a wrestler, you got to walk around when you have to walk into that role where it becomes so much you, it's natural. So Alex Shelley walking around with that hair, it took him a minute, but then once he felt comfortable in it, there it was, and he rocked and rolled. I mean, he looks so cool. There's a million pictures of him looking like a badass, and that's just a choice he made to dedicate it. It was that's just sacrifice to pro wrestling. That's full commitment.
That's right.
That's what you got. There's no There's no halfway. You can't 50% it. You can't 80% it. You just have to go all in. You have to go 100% with it.
And being comfortable in your own skin is going to help your presentation, help you look confident. The audience will know right away if you step into the ring and you don't believe in yourself, you're not confident, the audience is going to know right away. The trained eye and the promoter is also going to know right away who's ready and who isn't. So the more things you can do to immerse yourself in whatever it is you want to do, wrestling's art. I don't care if you want to play a wrestling chef or you want to be a samurai warrior. Just make it awesome and make the audience believe that you're this chef or this samurai warrior. He made a good point about Alex Shelley. When I traveled to bookings, especially in like the airport, I always made it a point. I would dress like a somebody. I would look like a rock star. I'd have a bandana. I'd have shades. Sometimes I'd have a suit. So I'm traveling to these places and people might not know what I'm traveling for, but I've been asked so many times, hey, what do? You look like you do something. Are you in a band? Are you some kind of fighter? Having that presence translates to your matches and your overall screen presence. So that's something that is very, very important. I want to bookend this into continuing about getting bookings. We discussed how to add our creativity to that.
When you talked about how to get bookings, I had this great thing I thought of, and I didn't get a chance to say it. So we can get back to that. But I was it's 3 words: please and thank you. Right? Oh wait, no, it's please come back. If you get a match and the fans go, please come back, you'll get to wrestle again. So if you're at a point where you go out there and you wrestle and you're just kind of flopping around, it's time to go back to the shop. If you're getting please come back chants at your local place, then you know you've got something worthy. Like that's kind of a good barometer to know, hey, okay, are we on fire? Like, are we fire yet? Are we that good? And then can I take this and do something this good against a stranger or somebody who trained at a different wrestling school? Or should we just stick with me and you from the dojo and try and take this act to the new indie and try and break out there as well, and make sure we do it the right way by letting everybody know, make sure that doing it the right way, you can expand and grow like naturally and organically without trying to force it. Because if you try and end up prying your way into a promotion, promotions aren't made for new people. Promotions are made to tell stories of a group of people throughout a set amount of time. You can't always add new people and you can't take people off. So if somebody sucks and they're there, well, deal with it. And if they're great and they're there, we'll deal with it. Because you might not be, because you might be a young wrestler, but they already have 3 young wrestlers. Well, they can't have 8. They need to have this guy. Oh, well, you want to go wrestle for a federation, but they already have a guy who dresses like the Undertaker. Well, you dress like the Undertaker. Like, they already have your role filled. The way WWE worked when I was there, this is sort of an older school mentality was, well, there was just one high flyer. So there's kind of just room for one per show or one per event, one small guy match per show. It was sort of very much divided like that. But, just categorized.
Yeah, I like that, man. I totally like where you're going with that. And I want to add on that is you have to understand your audience and you have to listen to them. It's okay to have an ego in wrestling. If you don't think that you should be the man, or woman, or be in the main event, this might not be the business for you. But you have to be realistic for yourself. So like Matt said, you go to a new place and you get a please come back chant, that's awesome. That's what you want. But what happens if you're working in the same place often, and maybe it's a group of wrestlers that aren't necessarily the most high level, and you stand out amongst just that crowd, well, you're hearing the same people chant your name or say how good you are, but maybe if you go to somewhere a little bit better competition down the road, you don't get that same thing. So be objective and listen to the crowd. I always tell people when they're watching their matches back, don't just watch them and pop for the good stuff and say, oh, that looked like crap, I could fix that. Listen to and watch the audience. If you do something that was designed in your mind for the audience to go, oh my God, this is the best thing ever, and you see half the people in the first row are sitting there like this, look in your mind and figure out why that is. What could you do to have made those people in the front row do the action or reaction that you wanted them to have? And that's really where we dig into the art of all this. Like Matt said, showing up and showing out is what's going to get you brought back. But how do you get in there in the first place? I'll give you a couple easy tidbits. The number one thing, you want to add?
Oh yeah, well,
Yeah,
man.
jump
Well,
in.
so
Jump
like
in,
you know,
jump in.
that's sort of, you got to ask yourself: are you asking the right question about getting booked from a promoter? You know, looking at it from the promoter's perspective is one perspective. The other perspective is being so good in the ring, other wrestlers watch you, want to wrestle you, and that's how you get brought into the promotion, because you don't know anybody at that promotion. So how would they ask you there? Well, a top wrestler there who wants to have a good match and keep his position there will want to bring you in to make him look good, to bring him in, and that's kind of an act that I do a lot. I get brought in places to wrestle local guys who are on a roll, and then they need somebody else to work with that can keep them established as a top guy right there. And I think that's always a great role. And these guys kick ass, and they're very skilled, and you end up gaining a lot of experience when you get to that place at the top of your indie fed. If they're bringing you in guys to flying in guys for you to work, that's a great position to be in. And then that guy will then go out other places and keep you in mind for that opportunity. You know, when you're really good in the ring, you're good at making yourself look good, and you're also as talented at making your opponent look good.
Yep, he's absolutely correct. And we'll combine Ben's question and Max's question here, which was basically a template of how to talk to promoters and when is it time to start leaving your local school, working other places, things like that. One, I recommend not going anywhere until your package is ready to sell. If you know in training class you're still missing the basics, you don't have an act down that the audience can't see through, it's probably not the best time to try to get booked on every show in your state, because you're going to expose yourself. Wait until you're ready. Yes, young wrestlers have to get opportunities in the ring, and they have to suck, and they have to learn, they have to get better, but you should have a pretty tight package. For instance, my personal students, I wouldn't send them out on outside bookings until I'm confident enough that they have a tight enough package where they're going to represent me and represent themselves well. So that's step one there. Next is reaching out to promoters en masse. And like Matt said, promotions aren't designed for new people. You have to realize when you're asking for a booking, the promotion already has 10 guys in mind that they use. So you're either asking them to take one of those guys off and insert you in, or to spend extra money they didn't intend on spending to bring you in. So you better give them a damn good reason to do that. So that's going to be what, like Matt said, with the quality of your previous work. You need good footage, you need recommendations, you need good matches, you need good highlight reels, to where if the promoters, you catch him on a good day and he's willing to say, okay, Chris, I'll look at your tape. You better have something that jumps out at him on that tape that's going to say, okay, I'll add to my budget to bring him in, or I'll consider taking this guy off the show. You have to understand this business is about money. And until you're there, you're going to have to ask for a lot of opportunities. If you're not getting a lot of bookings, trust me, man, this old school system works. Just show up and help. If you're not booked, if you reach out to me for 10 bookings and I can't give you anything, just offer to show up. Hey, Chris, can I come help out with the show? I'll do security. I'll set up the ring. I'll do whatever. You're going to, at minimum, learn from watching the matches in the ring, and you're going to show to whatever that promotion is that you're willing to put in the work, you're willing to sacrifice, you're willing to help them out. And most promoters will reward you and teach you in the process. So my recommendations is make sure you got a package ready, reach out to a lot of promoters, be ready to be told no, because you will get a lot of no's, but be ready to tell them why they should book you. Why you versus the guys they already have. Why you versus the $100 or $200 extra dollars it is to bring you in. Be prepared to answer those questions, and when you get there, deliver on those. Anything to add to that?
Yeah, no, they're just going to ignore you. They're just going to ignore you. You have to be there in person. Then how to talk to promoters? Well, ask yourself, what is a promoter? They're the guy who promotes the show, which means they're kind of in charge of everything. So day of the show, things are very hectic for them. They're kind of running around like a crazy person, and they don't care about you. So when you see them and you go up to them and you say, hey, I'm so-and-so, thanks for putting on the show. Start with thanking them, because without promoters, what are we going to do? Okay, so you start with, hey, thanks. Oh, good. How are things going for the show? Things looking okay for tonight? See how it makes sure everything's okay for them? Say, hey, my name's such and such. I'm from this area, and I train with Steve. we'll be hanging around all night if you need any extra bodies. It's we live close anyway, man. Let me know if you need anything. Okay, that's it. But they're not there to serve you. You should be there to serve them, because we as wrestlers, like, what do you do? Like, as good as your act is, no one's beating down the door. Like, no one's setting up the ring for your act. Like, he's doing that, they're doing that, and there's a lot of people doing a lot of groundwork that you have to recognize. Like, that the ring didn't just get set up for your match. It got it takes a lot of things for this to happen, and acknowledging the promoter's work that exemplifies what he knows. You're putting in your work when you're not in front of him, because he understands that he's putting in work when you're not there. And I think that kind of just showing some mutual respect goes a long way. Even if you have it in your head, it's hard to acknowledge it. So really just saying, hey, thanks because the promoter brought everybody there. So you're saying thanks for this environment, thanks for this opportunity for me to share a locker room with maybe Honky Tonk Man's back there. Some of one of these guys, you never know who ends up in one of these wrestling locker rooms. I don't know.
Sure.
Somebody great that can tell you all sorts of wonderful things. Like, for example, like last weekend, I ended up on a show with Mark Henry and Jerry Briscoe, and these are just the phenomena where you're just like, thank you, wrestling gods, because you just get to have a great weekend, and you learn all these things. And, I appreciate the promoter for not just, it was a charity show he's doing for Paul Bearer, so he's already doing all these good things. You got to understand the promoter's hearts are in it just as deep as ours are, but they're coming from a different perspective, and like, the more you appreciate that, the deeper you'll understand wrestling.
I guarantee you guys, this is some of the best advice you're going to receive all month and probably all year. Take that shit to heart. It works. When you're talking to these promoters too, you notice Matt used a lot of pleases, thank you, gratitude, politeness. The biggest mistake people make is you'll get a message that says something like, hey, you got any spots for Saturday? That's not the approach. No, my card is filled. Most promoters aren't just throwing around open spots. If they're a good promoter, odds are they have their shit together. So you need to communicate professionally. The same way if you're going to apply for a job at Google, you're going to send a resume, you're going to send a professional inquiry. My name's Chris. Here's what I do. Here's my experience. Here's who trained me. I'd love an opportunity to help you in any way I can. I'll be at your show, like Matt said. I'll be at your show with Steve from down the street who trained me and is on the show. You need any buddies, you need anything, I'm your man. I'm there. I'm happy to help. Happy to serve however you need. Be professional in these inquiries. And a lot of times there's not going to be much money for you in the start. I didn't make shit when I started. I'm sure Matt didn't make shit when he started. Expenses far exceed what you're bringing in. But when you get enough matches, you get enough reps, you get enough notoriety, that's when you start getting your profits. But without making those first steps and creating those relationships, you won't get there to the point of profitability.
Yeah, and the promoter, in the end, they're giving you your opportunities. They're the ones who are going to bring that guy in. Like, if Gabe Sapolsky doesn't bring in the Dragon Gate guys to wrestle me and AJ, I don't start with Dragon Gate. Like, if they don't give you these opportunities, and it's not something you can do for yourself. So just, understanding and appreciating what goes into putting on a live show. Same thing, like, appreciate your ring crew, appreciate the sound guy. I mean, there's a lot going on, and the more a part of the organization you can be, the more likely you are to be booked. You might start as sound guy or cameraman or referee or whatever it is, but if you want it, you'll be in the ring. But I started setting up chairs at 15. I didn't care. I just wanted to be around wrestling rings. And if that's what you do, if you hang around them, it'll be the same people. It's the same core group of people that kind of pump the blood through this industry. And, the sooner you link up with the ones that are doing it the right way, the better. So,
Matt, what was the first thing you ever did in wrestling? Put up chairs?
Yeah, I showed up to this thing called, it was Midwest, 4-lettered promotion. And yeah, I forced my friend, and we forced his mom to drive us to the show, and we didn't even get to stay for the event. We set up chairs and we just went home. It was the first thing we did. And
real quick, could you just rattle off 5 promotions that people probably have heard of around the world that you've worked with?
CZW. No, I've wrestled everywhere.
So I'll name them for him. No, go ahead. No, I want you to do it.
World Wrestling Entertainment.
Ring of Honor.
Dragon Gate, New Japan. FCW, that doesn't count. See, that's not that many people. I don't know what people watch.
Impact, OVW, everywhere.
I am the Omerton Road champion.
He was the current Overton Road champion.
Yeah.
Point being,
PWG.
PWG, yeah.
Like, I don't know. It's hard to list places. Like, and I'm not a guy who wrestled these places one time. Like, that's the thing. Like, I did 2 stints of over 2 years at Ring of Honor. I did 2 years at Dragon Gate. I did 2 years at New Japan. I did, I don't know how many years, 5 or 6 at WWE. Like, I didn't go just for the cup of coffee. I've just lived it and breathed it. And the thing is, what I constantly do is reassess it, because we constantly have a new environment. The fans are different. The world changes. And all I can do is adapt and test. What I'm talking about, I test every weekend. That's the one thing I do, is I go out and try and wrestle at the coolest places with the coolest guys and see what works. And it's just old-fashioned pro wrestling. It just, whatever, the original style pro wrestling. The creative guys are the ones that stand out. The Jack Evans, the Ray Phoenixes, Pentagons.
Here's the takeaway I want to give you guys all from that. Matt's been around to all of these places, and this first act was setting up some chairs, driving to places, learning, listening, applying, getting better, which is something to this day. We've been around wrestling around the same amount of time. We still train every week. We still better ourselves every week. Unfortunately, I can't wrestle anymore, but my focus is now going to go on bettering my students, becoming a better producer. The learning never stops. He's constantly assessing what he does to make it better. That's how you get ahead in this business. It all starts with groundwork. You will never find success without work. It just doesn't work that way. So I think we answered enough of these questions. I want to show a little in-ring stuff. Matt, how do you feel about doing a little technique?
I feel like I've been sitting for a long time.
Yeah, well, let's get our asses up.
Yeah, let's do it.
We'll answer a couple questions.
These things, are there questions going on here?
So I have the questions written down here. We had one question on here that we already answered a while ago. I had him submit the questions in advance, so we wouldn't have to stop and grab some stuff. So we're going to restructure here. I'm going to figure out how to get this camera angle ready. You guys want to grab a notebook, stretch out a little bit. While we get working on that, we'll reconvene here in just a minute. I'm going to sit for my bang. Thank you guys so much for joining us, man. It's been a good time so far, and we got a lot more for you coming your way. All right, bear with me while I butcher the camera work here. I've done many jobs in pro wrestling, but cameraman is not on my list of skill set necessarily. Sebastian, can you do me a favor and move those pads out of the ring? So one of the first things I want to show you guys in the ring, and I want Matt to demonstrate this, is because he does this particularly well. I want to show you guys how to utilize rolls in your pro wrestling match. You guys have probably learned these, known as shoulder rolls, three-quarter rolls, things like that. I want to show you how to utilize rolls, and in particular, I want to show you how to utilize roll bumps. The reason why I'm a big proponent of these is they can keep the action of the match flowing a little bit faster, especially in 2019 and 2020 now, where the pace of wrestling is a lot quicker. Plus, these roll bumps are going to save your body a lot. If you're taking these big, giant flip bumps, remember, everyone has a bump card, and eventually it will run out. And one day yours will run out. So this is a way to keep the action flowing a little bit quicker, and it's going to give you a little bit more longevity. So let's cover just a few basic rolls, and Matt's going to show you guys the awesome roll bump, one of my favorite things that he teaches. Tony, if you want to hop in here with Coach Matt.
Oh wait, can I give us a talk before we get going?
Yeah. Let me turn the camera on you.
Yeah, bring it this way, bring it in. Yeah, so we're going to start with these rolls and all these things. It's important to warm up and be loose and stretch. A lot of people always are like, oh, hey, you do yoga. So here's the thing. If you're not flexible, just like anything, just like with strength, flexibility only comes with time and consistency and effort over long periods of time. And so with stretching, you can loosen up and get warmed up, and that's a good way to get ready to do these rolls. But if you want to deepen your flexibility in your stretches, you need like 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 minutes in touching your toes, wide straddle, one leg toe touch, one leg toe touch. All these different the positions that you do when you warm up. Hold those like a lunge, you know, a lunge pose like this, you know, and just hang out here for 3 or 4 minutes, and then drop down to nice lizard and let it open up for a few more minutes. I'm talking like 1-2 minutes. That's at least 20-30 breaths if you're just going in and out. And you just hang out here and you loosen up, and you can really get deeper in, like not just like the ligament, like you get deeper into the fascia, the connective tissue, and that's how you can actually get more limber. And then when I ask you to throw a kick, you can get your knee, instead of your knee coming up to here, your knee comes up to here, and then you can really throw a kick. You know, that little bit, that inch or two is what's going to separate you from somebody else. If you throw a kick and you've got the real leg flexibility, and the other guy is just kind of throwing his leg up like this, you know what I mean? Like this is indie wrestling kick 1, you know what I mean? And then there's like 2 where you're like, bang! That's what we're working on. So stretching is super important, and then once you're warmed up, once you make sure your neck's okay, a little neck roll, you know, head roll side to side, all these kind of things. You can do head pull this way. Wrestling neck strength is important. You can do like you hammerlock yourself the other way, like this. That's a good stretch. Pull down. You can do. Like I'm not sure if everybody knows these ones where you lay at the edge of the mat and you do neck raises here. For added weight, you can put your hands on the back like that. Sideways. You can do both sides. And then first face up. When you face up, you first do chin in, and then you go up. Do chin in, and then you go up. That's how you do these. Like it's important to do headstands, tripods, neck bridges, all these things to strengthen your neck, because rolls require not just a flexible neck, but also a strong one. So for neck flexibility, to strengthen your neck and to elongate your neck, you basically do like a bridge like this with your hands down, and you push up here like this, and you can get length in your neck here. So first you get length this way, and then you see how like my neck's flat there. You go down. You can do that a few times before you even do a neck bridge. If you haven't done a neck bridge yet, you can get hurt trying them. So you do this first before you use a neck bridge, where you're actually using kind of like the base of the skull and your neck muscles to bridge up. That's kind of like the beginning thing. And yeah, I mean, you can just do real basic stuff, just reaching over one shoulder. But these are kind of like before you're really doing tough neck bridges. You can warm up with these. Start warming up the side of your neck here, this way, like that. It's just real important to get your neck going, as somebody who's suffering from tons of neck issues. It's important to remember that. You gotta keep working on that neck. All right, now if we're ready for rolls.
Yeah, come on in, boys. And we've had some of our students here stretching out during the first classroom part. I explained briefly.
I had to run a mountain with 45-pound plates. They just got back.
I explained briefly the importance of rolls and roll bumps, how they can keep the action flowing quicker, and how they can save our body from taking large flip bumps.
Yeah, and they can really control. It's all about like having a landing where you're under control. Because if you have a landing where you're under control, then you can pretend like you're not under control, give that illusion, but then come up safely, smoothly, and with exquisite timing. Because that's what really makes the difference. Everybody does moves, but it's the guys that do the moves with that precision timing and precision footwork. And the reason these guys are on these beats, a lot of the beats come from luchalibre, and luchalibre is based in these kind of roll bumps. So some of the common mistakes, like if people are doing that roll bump, I'm going to slowly just do the end part of it. And the bump ends here like this. A lot of times when guys take moves, they bump and they roll, they're coming up too far forward. So what happens in this situation, my solution is simple. It's if you bump it, you go too far forward, just come on back down for a second, pump, and then find this position where we want to end up, and then start working your way back up and feeding for what's next. You know, whatever side it's on, you end up there like that. So that's the over rotation. And the thing is, for this one, you don't have to worry about flipping and only half rotating because you're just doing a roll. You know, you're using your hands to slow yourself before you hit the ground, then rolling from your head, shoulder roll, nice and flat. That nice bump. I'll let these gentlemen.
Yeah, you've got Tony and Kurt here at your disposal. Feel free to run them through the paces.
I can tell they're just dying to get in the ring. That's the thing, when you're this intimidating, dudes are scared to just straight jump in the ring.
Hey, hop on in, boys. Tony, Kurt, hop in.
Got a promo on each and every one. Okay, oh, hey, brother, hey, I don't want any problems. Referee, get in here. Ref, back him up a little bit. Okay, guys, I expect Tony to enthusiastically tell you what role he's going to do before he does it with some charisma and charm, and then do the role, and then let Kurt do it, and then we can explain it as we go.
All right, let's see it. Tony Donati. Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, let's just start with we'll work the quarter roll bump sequence. So let's begin. I'll allow you to begin and show these fine people the quarter roll. What can be referred to a quarter roll, 3/4 roll. I don't know either. I guess that's the whole pie.
Shoulder roll.
Shoulder roll. That's what it's referred to. But here, what we're doing is we're rolling and we're coming up to our feet. And just to explain, the main thing is that as you're rolling, you're rolling over your shoulder. But what's important is we're tucking the leg in and standing up like that.
Can you show that motion again, Matt?
Yeah. So as we're rolling over, we're tucking our leg to our butt, and that's helping us get up. Bang. So it's you need some momentum on the roll, but when the leg you're tucking, you bring it close to your butt, and that'll help you roll right up to your feet.
All right, let's hit it.
Wow, fantastic, Tony. You're hired. You're booked.
Beautiful.
Thanks, man. Good. Now just do one each way. Like show both shoulders, please.
So wrestlers listening, you should be able to do these on both sides of the body. If you don't know how to shoulder roll on the left and the right side, that's something I recommend you do immediately. These are the kind of quick rolls you're going to take on things like scissors, head scissors, ranas, quick mares, just different sequences where a quick bump is required.
Yeah, so that's the quarter roll, and then Tony, you can show the quarter roll with the bump part next. Whee! Nice. Now, how about forward roll with the bump? Dang, nice. And now the left side, sorry. Dang, nice.
Now,
Let's stop it in there. A lot of times when people take ranas and stuff, you can continue this one. So like the full expression of it would be the roll, bump, pop to your belly, and kind of use that momentum, so kind of go into a little feet, pop, and then just a little glide at the end. This is the full expression of the... Now he's facing his opponent, so guess what? Whatever's coming next, he gets up, he's running straight at him. He's not doing this, hey, I'm a dumb guy who walks backwards. You take it, but you're coming right back at your opponent. I mean, it's also the way to get out of the ring after the Hurricane Run. You can take it, there's the roll, and you can snap right out that way too.
what I love about this bump and why I wanted to make sure Matt shared it with all you guys is, it looks great. It keeps the action moving, and it's so much easier on your body to learn how to perfect this. What a lot of guys do is when they're taking a Rana, they take the same bump as a hip toss. You can't take 3,000 of those in a lifetime and walk out okay. So this is going to save your body a little bit and make your matches more entertaining and move a lot faster.
Yeah, and what it does is a lot of time there's like a really cool move, but then the sound is just like rah, 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 rah. What needs, if there's a cool move, then there's a big sound. Like that's what like it's required. Sorry about your headphones. I hope. It's like for storytelling, for theater, and for the audience. They need that sound, and that sound is showing how big that move was. So if a guy gives you a Rana and you roll and you're standing on your feet, that move didn't hurt at all. But if so if you take a Rana and you just roll and you're up here, then that move didn't hurt at all. But if you take the Rana and you roll and you're down here, that move worked. And now we can go on to what's next. But I'm just taking the time to take the move all the way and then kind of stay down to show how good it was. And then I'm gonna be mad. I'm gonna move fast. I'm not gonna move. Oh, I'm so slow. But it's just like you take it, and then you stay down. So by the time people look, if a bunch of people go ooh ah, everybody turns and looks. So you want to still be down. Otherwise, if they're oohing and ah and you're already up, the people, it's more challenging to decipher what happened or who hit who, because you got to understand people are so far away. It's a challenge to decipher. Oh, sometimes a guy doesn't move. You gotta pick him like this. We both go down like that. And who move to who? It's really important to make it clear for the fans. And this is just a bump. That's the number one thing in wrestling. What we do, we learn, we practice, is bumping for the other guy, because that's how you make them look good. And bump means stay down. Until you get up, I guess. Hey, let's do a couple more of those, guys. Just do the regular roll bumps. Yeah.
Very nice. Looking good.
Yeah, do you have any questions about it? Like
So a couple people wanted to see it again, and since then we've gotten to show the move a few times.
And so to break down the finishing part of it, and to practice it, you can just kind of go on this side, sideways. But you just go, you bring your hips up, and then top. So you're coming down as a straight board. You're not coming down with a break at the waist. You're actually having a straight body. The same way you try and land flat here. It's just different than landing here. But so you can practice by going up and down here. Bang. This hand's here. It's usually should be parallel line with that leg here. This hand's like defense. Like, oh man, please, when you a guy drop kicks you and you fall down or whatever, it's always good to be here with defense. This is how you take arm drag, all sorts of maneuvers. I like it right here.
Yep, and the beauty of what we're doing today is you're going to have this on your phone, at least for a couple weeks. So next time you go training, watch this back. Keep your phone in your pocket and try this yourself. You might even learn that. Matt, you do a lot of cool little Sydelisms, little cool tech spots. You want to give somebody one of your trade secrets? Maybe show a little cool move, ski, or sequence that you don't mind the world seeing and potentially using?
Oh man, there's this one I wanted to do, but my knuckles already locked, so this is gonna be a little challenge. But one thing I like to do is after you were working on. Okay, so here's one thing. Can I tell you what I hate?
Yeah.
I hate because everybody plays wrist lock games up here. I think it's too challenging. A lot of time I like to finish my arm ringers down, bang at the ground, right? Once I got it there, I can go overhand just a little down. Bang! I can make that noise, right? And then I just turn my hand, and I would knuckle lock you, but I got to give it a grip, and then I get that knuckle lock, and I go, and I got to work the knuckle lock here, like this, and I do it just like the same way I got a headlock. I get that takeover, and then I come back up, bang, and I work that here like this. So that's just I do arm ringer in here, and then you can go, hey, sha, and then take fingers like that. Sorry. Then you can keep the knuckle lock there. Go to top wrist lock.
Feel free to work it through, with the bump and everything. Hit it, Matt, if you don't mind.
And then go over. Bang. There you go. You don't have to make the clap. You just do that. Good. Good, and then right back to the wrist lock. You can go into it, now do it again, do it right again. He let go of it, went to the wrist lock, right back to it. Nice. Tony, work the camera.
We're learning here, folks.
Yeah, get it right. There it is. Step in closer. Close the distance between you. Now you have control of it, right? Good. Okay. Yep.
And these are all just cool little simple techniques that you can do to differentiate yourself.
They're like, oh, but I'm a healer, but I'm a that. Like, all you have to do is just like, you can make it your own. You get them here, you work in here, you bring it into the ropes, you break it back, hey, again, you get it right back, hey, we're right back here, oh. You know, this is where the heel would do it. If I'm the good guy, I'm just doing it out here in the open. You know, I think when people are saying, oh, what's the difference between a heel and a baby face? But I'm also like, if I'm working in like this and I'm the heel, then I'm waiting till the ref's back's turned, and then you can kind of go up here if you need to. But you don't. But if I do that, if I pull his hair like that, I'm gonna let Tony roll through, come up, give one, and get me back, because I don't want to do him like that. You know, I try not to get you guys too dirty in matches. That's why, you know, I'm always thinking about how can we both look great. So, is there more stuff we wanted to work on? Or?
Yeah, whatever couple technique pieces you want to show. Then I have a few things I want to show, and we'll take a few more listener questions.
Okay.
You got such a cool repertoire. I like just watching a lot of the simple but awesome transitions you come up with. You do a lot of cool pins as well. So yeah, man, just anything that they may not have seen before.
Well, just one thing that like I like to just talk about is like putting guys into the buckle and stuff and going corner to corner. What I don't like is when the whip goes to corner. When the whip not, I don't like you guys backing up. What I prefer is like the continuous chase or the continuous follow. So even if I whip him here, I'm just one step behind, bang. So even if he's going to put the boot up, so for example, if he's going to put the boot up, what a lot of people want to do is their instinct says, whip across, boom, crowd, run in, eat the boot. The right way to do it is get the crowd going here like this. You're nothing, my hometown's better than your hometown, where I'm from is better than where you're from, etc. and so forth. My high school's better than your high school, I got a better education, and so forth. Put it like that. The timing's, that's just a common mistake I see. It's just an order of operations. You want to kind of get the crowd with you and then hit the spot, not start the spot, ask the crowd to make sure they're with you, and then run and continue it.
Beautiful. Tony, I'd like to see you hit Kurt with something on that. Just shoot him in, follow him in with something tight. Put a little bit of speed to it so they can see what it looks like in action. So what's beautiful about that is he's not giving his opponent time to breathe, which is something I'm very big on in wrestling, and it's different. Everyone else, not everyone else, but a lot of people on the show is going to do what Matt said. They're going to pose in the middle of the ring, they're going to taunt, and then they're going to run in. This automatically makes you different. Can you try this again and Kurt get the boot up?
Or Kurt, just move out of the way.
There you go.
Tony still go for the clothesline, Kurt, just move.
Okay.
So you can see the timing on this. A lot quicker, we can go from there, and the audience isn't going to see it coming. The audience is conditioned to see the things we telegraph. So they know if Matt throws him to the buckle and he's over there, you know, telling them how much their town sucks, he's probably going to run into the boot. So this is just a little change to that. Anything else you want to show on this series or in general?
I mean, I'd like to see that one done well. Well, how are you? What kind of clothesline are you throwing there?
Bad
Let me see that close up. Just throw it just like you're doing it, but Kurt, get out of the way, you know?
Yeah, Kurt, move quickly.
Out of the way, the close
Good. Better.
Yeah, that'll work.
Much better. A good thing on this too is a short elbow. Here, Seb, would you, or Matt actually will take over on camera for a minute. So the way I like to utilize this as a cutoff is a short elbow. So let's say Tony's shooting me at greens. We're going to run it kind of slow so I can demonstrate. So Tony is going to take off as soon as I start running. I'm rotating right here to here. So immediately he's going to hit my elbow right there, take his bump. So it's not going to be a long setup of this, then he finally comes running, bam. So I'm going to try to do this almost with real speed so you guys can see how the timing of it should be. So Tony's going to shoot me off. There's the elbow, there's the sound, he goes down. Same thing with the boot. So he's going to shoot me in. I'm going to put the boot up. Bam. Oh, there's my boot. He goes down right there. It's authentic. The crowd's not going to see it coming. You can also go into your Bandera series from there. Same type of setup. So T, if you want to go into that.
And really, can you show that again, but without even going from buckle to buckle? If you just start with Chris in the middle and Tony throwing him from there, you can keep it even shorter and tighter, and it's even more unexpected if you're doing it from the center rather than corner to corner. So that one looks like if Chris is just a little bit past halfway, and then you just put up an elbow or whatever. But it just boom, bang, yeah, nice. I mean, it just you only need half the ring to generate action and sound and crowd interaction. I mean, you just need that much amount of space. You can make a lot happen. It looks really good when you do it like that.
And that's a great thing too that Matt brought up. One thing I'm a big proponent of, and I teach all my students, is learn to cut the ring in half and use it that way. So if I'm in the ring with Tony, and let's say I want to deliver a back elbow to Tony, there's no need for me to grab Tony and go all the way here and come back to here and do a back elbow, right? Man, we're wasting a lot of motion. In pro wrestling, you want to take as few steps as possible, get the most out of those steps. Instead, I'm firing off right here. There's the back elbow, he goes down. There's small little details that are going to set your game apart. And a lot of wrestlers, Tony, can you just back me up from here to the ropes? A lot of wrestlers will make this. Notice my body language there wasn't very pleasing to the eye. That's how it looks more often than not. So what I want to do to add on this series real quick is throw in the quick Bandera. If you don't know what the Bandera is, it's just popping somebody up to the apron. You see a lot in modern wrestling. But it's going to be the same kind of setup. If you learn this and you trust your opponent, you can have it come out of nowhere. Because the audience is conditioned to know if Tony throws me in here and then he takes however many seconds showboating, they're conditioned to know something is about to happen. However, if I hit that Bandera with no time in between, it's going to make our match a little bit more exciting. One pro tip I'll give you on the Bandera, most people execute it with the left, but some do it with the right. So whenever somebody's calling this in the match Bandera, just communicate which arm that they're going to be doing it with to avoid anything crazy. I recommend doing the same thing with like kicks or clotheslines. Just verify what side is coming so you can know. Okay? So for this example, Tony's going to throw me the buckle on the Bandera today for using it's off, quick, the action's hot, we're moving to the next place. So just something, very simple step, make your stuff stand out, work a little bit quicker. I want to show you guys a couple of things out of my toolbox, and then I'm sure Matt will want to add something. So one thing I want to go over is just something very basic, but this is something that I think is of the utmost importance. It's just going to be your pro wrestling lockup. So the way that we like to do our lockups here is our left hand is going to come almost like a jabbing motion to the back of their collar right here, and our right hand is going to rest right here in the knee of Tony's forearm. So a lot of people will do this wide lock up here, and then they'll dance around here. Now this doesn't really look like too athletic or competitive of a position. We're just kind of doing dancing with the stars. However, if we do a quick
Tony, work the
lock
camera.
up, sorry.
Tony, work the camera. Come on. Let Chris see Chris.
So if he's following like that. So if we're doing a little quick tighter lockup, boom, we're right here nice and tight. Now this is the next step that I like to see on this. Feel free to add that to your game in your matches this week. So we can dance around here like this, or we could really make this a struggle by taking our right hand and placing it on each other's chest. Now we have something to push the pull off of. It looks like a little bit more of a struggle. We have some facials here where I can show that I'm struggling, that we're actually doing something. Another small tweak you can do is just simply putting your hand up here to the chin. Now notice I'm not putting any real pressure on Tony, but notice what this is giving the appearance that I'm doing. Just something small and simple on a lockup to make it look a little bit more realistic. Maybe we break right here. Here's something I picked up in the UK that I love. Sometimes you can go right back to the lockup from there. Referee breaks us, boom, we're right back to it, okay, and we're going. So don't think you always have to reset when you break in the corner or reset. I'm going to give you guys another pro tip as well on this, is don't create too much space. The same way Matt was saying, don't throw them from the other side of the ring, dance around and run in. Don't create too much space here. So Kurt, come in and play the role of the referee. So if I'm doing a break in the corner, again, and the referee breaks us, I don't want to run all the way to the opposite side of the ring and create all this space. That's going to look bad on television, or it's just going to give him more room to attack him. So we're going to keep it a lot smaller. If you're the babyface will always move forward. So if I'm getting broke right here, I'm going to take a step out. I'm going to listen to the rules. Tony will know as the heel. He's going to circle around. Get out of the way, and now we're back here. But I've never backed up. I'm always following him. I'm always moving forward, which I think is very important stuff.
Yeah, well, just would you show them your tie-up again? You only showed it once, and the rest of the time you tied up really fast, which is awesome. But I just wanted you to show how you get to it. I just want to make sure he gets a good angle on it because I thought that was an important lesson.
So the left hand is thrown almost like a jab, up, your boxer. And it's going to land right here on his collar. This is why it's called a collar and elbow tie. So it's going to quickly go there. Okay? Notice he caught my arm there. This right hand is going to fall right here on the meat of his forearm. And usually get a nice little pop sound. That's at least how I like to do mine. So doing it in super slow motion, we're going to tie it tight, and we're right here. We don't want to tie up from out here, because then we turn into a slot fist. So Tony is a very high-level amateur wrestler. So I'm going to show you why you shouldn't do this. Tony, without killing me, you're a wrestler, I'm a wrestler. I do this. Okay, it's wrestling 101. So to be a really good worker, you have to be able to get the fans to suspend their disbelief. When you watch a Batman movie, you know he's not really Batman, but you're into the character because they sold you on the characters, they sold you on the story. Wrestling's the same way. So Tony and I aren't really trying to kill each other, but our goal is to make it look like we are. Then they get into our match. That's the art of wrestling. You could sell them all day. I could literally paint, this is fake, on the front of the billboard. But when they come in, if we do it well, we entertain them, it doesn't matter. Our job is to make it look good. So we'll do one more of these, just quick taps, and here's our position, and then we'll roll from there. I'm just going to show you guys two easy transitions off of this. One is just a simple headlock transition. So a lot of times, guys will pop into their headlock, and there's not necessarily anything wrong with this. I'm just going to give you my take on it. Guys will pop this arm right here, and we're going to go into our side headlock right there, and we're going to roll. Just going to give you a little different way to do it. So when your tie-up's here, Tony's a big, strong lad, works out, right? So there might be a good chance, I want you to defend this. So if I'm going to try to windshield wipe with Tony, there's a lot of effort to move his arm, right? He's pretty strong. However, I can utilize a push-pull motion. So I'm going to push in and pull Tony into my headlock. So I've made more out of the headlock than I've made it into a move. Simple thing, feel free to use it. It's just going to make your headlock stand out from everyone else's. Again, if 10 people on the show are doing the same thing, but you do yours a little different, you're going to stand out. So I'll show that again one time. It's just real simple, real easy. Push in, pull into your headlock. We're going to go right from there. And like we were discussing about traveling too much distance, if we're trying to start gunning and gunning, get into a high spot attack with drop downs, all that shit, there's no need for Tony to take me all the way back here, because again, we're just wasting steps, right? If I got him headlocked and we're going to go into, let's say, a tackle spot, we're right here. So he's just going to fire me off. Bang, he's down in a position for action. So let me give you guys a little pro tip. Tony, can you give me a headlock? What you see a lot of times when people are trying to do this is there's a lot of walking while they figure out what rope to throw to, and it gets sloppy. This is a rookie mistake that's made by even people with experience. So the trick to knowing where to throw your opponent is watch their feet. Tony has to get a headlock. I see which direction his feet are pointing. I notice his feet are pointing that way. That's the path of least resistance. I'm throwing him that way. Super easy. That's how I know where I'm going. If his feet are pointing this way, I'm throwing him that way. Just two little different things that make life a little bit simpler. So I want to show you something else you can do on the arm. I like what Matt showed is something a little different, and mine's kind of along those lines. So if we're working here from a tie-up and we're working the arm, a lot of guys will do this all one here, bing, and we'll go here to arm bar. Everyone else on the show is going to be doing that, right? So it'll be a little bit different. I'm a big proponent of trapping here. Boom, I'm going to trap his arm in here. So I've got a lock of his arm under his elbow. So go ahead and try to pull that arm out. So, you know, he's not going full strength because he's not trying to kill me, but I've got his arm in there pretty tight so he can't go anywhere. In the match, I'm going to have it just tight enough to where he knows I want it to stay there, but I'm not trying to hurt him. Just a simple other way to get the arm than doing that thing right there. Then we can go a lot of places with it. We can go to a quick arm ring there. Then, like Matt said, a lot of guys like to go up here. I like to finish mine low. So I'll give a little cramp on the arm there. Now we'll go back to our knuckle lock series. Boom, I got him here. I want to take him over. So I'll show this move twice because it's a little bit harder to pick up. So I'm going to take one step. I'm pushing Tony into the heavy, and flip. There he is. And I'm going to this arm bar right here, which is just a little different to our standard pro wrestling arm bar. But this, again, a little different. So I'll show you that one more time. We trapped our arm. We trapped our arm. Bang. We've isolated the hand. Bang. He's folded. Push him. Take him one step. I'm turning this way. He flips. Conclusion of his flip. I'm placing his left arm under my right arm, bending his elbow. Now I got a nice tight little arm bar right there. So if he sits to his butt, bam, now I can really show and work that hold right there. It's going to be just a different hold. It looks a little meaner, a little more aggressive. And this one, nothing wrong with this arm bar. I use both. This one's cool. But when I'm really trying to show that I'm working the shit out of somebody's arm, that's when we're going to this one because it's got a little more umph to it. We can use this to transition into a couple things. One is the old O'Connor spot. So I got this arm bar locked in, breaking down flat. I'm going to post on him and I'm going to spin. Spin around his body. Boom, come back into that arm bar. It's just something a little bit different. We want to switch up, work the chin from there we can. Work it back around, bang. We're back right here on the arm. Another easy transition we can do out of this. Let's say he starts fighting his way out of it. He's working. I'm going to pull him to his back. Bam. I'm going to execute it very slow because I'm old. Forward roll. And I'm going to end up in a Fujiwara arm bar. So we're going to start this hold by grabbing him left hand, left wrist. I'm going to execute a shoulder roll this way. Turn in. I'm going to rotate. Here I am set the arm. It's all pretty. So in the first 2 minutes of our match, if Tony and I traded things like that back and forth, we both look like pretty credible, knowledgeable wrestlers. Then we can go to doing whatever we want. If we want to do foot pile drivers, so be it. We can do whatever we want. If we want to do strike fest, so be it. We can do whatever we want. Those are just little different ways to make your game stand out a little bit different. Matt, anything that you would like to add to this series?
Matt, I love that finishing hold. That's a great one. Which is important. What I just wanted to mention what Chris was doing is all of the holds. There's no. You're not seeing the flags behind him. When he has those holds on, they're they're fully connected without the strain. And that's what it is. It's just snug. It's not strained. You shouldn't have to fight hard to keep them there, because when you're like if you're working somebody's throat and neck hold, you should be blocking them. Their body should be under your control too, so that way you don't have to squeeze them too hard at the place where you're putting where the pressure point is. It's good, but some guys are squirrely, so you need to control them with your body. That way you're not controlling them with where you're doing the pressure, you're controlling them with the other parts of your body. And that's why like, you did such a good job standing over them, having them here, but you had your knee, your back's into him, your body's right up next to him. There's none of the holes are far away. We're all in right next to each other. And that's the thing in wrestling. Guys have a tendency to, even after a pin or whatever it is, they have a tendency to try to go away from their opponent. You want to have a tendency to be even closer, because this is where the action happens. Like he said, you can't tie up from over here. You have to be here to tie up, and this is where things happen anyway.
Beautiful. And one thing I notice a lot is, let's say Matt and I are working. Let's say Matt is a baby face on the heel. Can you just take my arm and I'm going to punch you? So Matt takes my arm, heel, bang, here comes the shitty punch. Matt starts selling, and then you start seeing the heel doing this one. Now, if he has any brains in his skull, when I turn back around, boom, that's when it lights out, right? So as a heel, especially as a babyface, don't do these kind of things. He's been working me over. I finally hit him. I'm going to keep moving forward. So when Matt sells that punch for me, bang, I can still be a showboat if I want to, but I'm going to keep moving forward. I'm going to put him where I need to put him. If I want to throw something, tell him to sell this chop, bam. He sells it. I can still do what I need to do, convince the audience of the heel, body language. But I'm not going to let him recover. I'm going to stay on him. And he knows as a good babyface, he's going to keep himself alive. So he's not just, I'm not going to punch him and chop him and he's going to be lying on the mat. He's a tough motherfucker, so he's got to know his babyface to keep himself alive.
Yeah, and depending on where you're at, like you can punch me, I go down, and if he doesn't back up, I stand up, then you say, come on, punch me. I punch you back, we go there, but we're not going away, we're not taking, when he takes the punch, he didn't turn away and settle over here to the fans. He's so back this way, because the people on this side and these sides will still see it over his shoulder, you know what I mean? And a lot of people have a tendency to think you have to go like this to talk to the crowd. There's crowd everywhere, and so I'm working the crowd when I'm doing this, but this moment is a moment, and this, yeah, that's not nobody's, the intensity's all gone.
While we're on this subject, Vaughn is asking, what's the best way to hit or punch an opponent?
Precisely. That's what's the best way to hit or punch him. As fast as you can do it, yeah. Because you're only hitting with the opening that they give you. Because you can't really... There's no best way to hit them other than with live practice.
To continue on this lesson, the example Matt just gave of him in the road showboating while I'm over here is great. You don't want to do that for a couple of reasons. One is you're allowing your opponent time to recover. The example I always give is MMA, UFC now. If he and I have been knocking the crap out of each other and it's an even fight, and I catch him with something and he goes down, if I'm in a UFC fight, my first instinct isn't going to be to rain around. My instinct is going to be to finish him. Wrestling, we're theater. So we're going to take a little bit longer to finish him, but we want to still give that same approach. Another thing is Matt and I are about the same size. We're 2 in shape dudes. We look pretty sweet on the beach, right? But we ain't the world's biggest men. And guess what? A lot of you guys watching are not either. And neither is anyone in this building today. On camera, the more distance that Matt and I have between one another on a wide shot, the smaller we look. So the closer we are together, the bigger we're going to look, the better we're going to look. I'm a big proponent of it generally always being within arm's reach of my opponent as well. If I can Tony demonstrate something real quick, and now I want to give feedback on it. So let's say I'm working over Tony. I'm going to throw a work punch for, I believe, Vaughn, just so you can see an example of it. So I'm working on Tony. Here comes the work punch. He's selling for me, right? I'll go down. I instructed him on where to go. So notice my body language here. I'm moving towards Tony. If I'm a heel and I want to tell him Cincinnati sucks or whatever, I can say Cincinnati sucks, but I'm still moving on my opponent. I'm going to protect Tony's face by turning. I'm going to say forearm coming. Boom! Here comes my forearm. Tony's down, but I'm still advancing my attack forward. So even if I want to talk shit, I'm still here ready. I'm in a fight position. Shots at him, right? So we're not going away from him. I don't want to do this and then come all the way over here, unless the purpose of that is for me to turn around and him to light me up, and then I'm going out that. So just a simple little detail that will tighten up your work a lot. Somebody asked me to review a match the other day, and it was so hard to watch because it was the first match of the show, and everything they did, they hit each other and created all this distance, and it just takes the view out of it. Matt, anything would you like to add on this topic of the lesson? Yep, so with those strikes, keep them tight. Best way to get there is practice them. Use a shower curtain. Thing that I used to perfect mine was using the corner of a wall. Now, if you hit that corner of the wall, that sharp edge, if you hit it, it's going to hurt. So you're probably not going to want to hit it again. So just practice those punches. Use a shower curtain. Use a towel. Then when you want to Jedi master the shit, use the corner of the wall. Keep it precise. A couple of different punches you could show. You'll be able to rewind this video back. Simple jab where I'm going to aim to the opposite side of the neck. If I'm jabbing with my right, I'm hitting him on his left side. Simple jab. Going right there. Simple shot to the face. Let's say I want to go for his chin. Taking my hand back here. Throwing it right there. If I want to do a haymaker, aim right about here. His neck. You don't ever want to aim nose, eyes, anything like that, because you're going to hurt somebody. Big haymaker's coming. Go right there. He sells accordingly. We both make each other look good. We had a question about comebacks, and this is the last in-ring thing I want to show. And then I'll have Matt wrap up our in-ring lesson with his take on this. The comeback. So people ask me for ideas about comebacks, what to do in comebacks, etc. What we've been telling you this whole webinar so far is be different, stand out from the pack. So your comeback is the perfect time to show this. What I often see, and I like to teach this in my live seminars, I see what I call the 13-second comeback. So Tony, will you bump around for me? So I've been selling for X amount of minutes. Now I'm the big baby face. It's my time. This is what my comeback looks like. Maybe someone will body slam, maybe someone will fly and close up. I'm taking it easy. I can't wrestle anymore, so I'm keeping it a little bit simple. But that whole process, if you rewind it back, I guarantee took between 12 and 15 seconds. I urge you guys to be creative, think out of the box, and get more out of your comeback. Generally, the average heat in the match is 2 to 5 minutes. So if Tony's beating my ass as a heel for 2 to 5 minutes, then it comes time for my moment, and I beat him up for 12 to 15 seconds, and then the next thing I do is hit the ropes and he spinebusters me for a false finish. Who's winning the fight on the scorecard? Him. So learn to do a different comeback. I learned this from Rip Rogers. I'll pass this on to you. Don't be like everyone else and use the clothesline comeback, especially if you don't have the biggest arm. I'm in shape and Matt's in shape, but we ain't clotheslining people 50 times a match. Let
One of my
JBL.
clotheslines knocks him out.
See? Let somebody big use a clothesline, put you on your ass. Now, we know it's not 1963 anymore, where everybody uses a clothesline as a finish. I'm not going to pretend that it is. But you don't want to do the same exact sequence everyone else is doing. What you're seeing everyone else do is 1, 2, 3, 4, or 1, 2, 3, 4, clothesline back out with some variation. Be creative. Think of ways to extend your comeback. So maybe you do want to work into an organic bump feed. So let's say I want Tony to bump feed on some punches for me. When I'm making this comeback, I'm going to stay in this little square right here. Tony has learned through his time with us as a heel to bump and feed. To be a good heel, you have to know how to feed a comeback. That's what's going to take the action of the match up once you've been selling for a little while. So Tony, just feed for me and move on. My comeback. Firing up, doing something else, right? I'm not going to do anything too crazy, but maybe second part of this is I shoot and do reversals. I jump out of that corner. I give him a spinning crossbody. He goes down into his pin. 1, 2, okay, so now we've wasted 35 seconds. We can keep going anywhere we want from here. So maybe the next thing I do is he's big up to his feet, he cuts me off with a knee. Boom, he shoots me off. I duck something. He comes from my sweep loose, he throws me in the air, big hurricane. Boom, I'm still on fire. He powders out to the floor. Everybody loves to do a dive these days, right? Maybe it's a good chance you get our dive in, for him to cut it off, go somewhere else. Build layers to it. It's nothing cooler than a match that the audience can't call. If in every other match they see 1, 2, 3, 4 when it's your match, they're going to expect that. So if you give them something different, you're going to stand out. Be creative, figure out a way to make that comeback. Look at the comeback you do now, time it, and figure out a way to get it longer and make you get over more. Because that's your time to shine as a babyface, especially if you're losing the match. Matt, would you like to ask me?
What did you do right before Atomic Drop Blue Clothesline?
I just fed him with some punches.
Yeah. So like you're working him up. He's like the comeback starts. Like the comeback doesn't end until Chris wins the match. That's when the comeback's really over. So when he's fighting back, he's getting the crowd into it. He's been getting his ass kicked. He hits this, bang, steps back, digs down deep, wham, hits that lariat. He goes. Sometimes you can actually hit that lariat. Sometimes you might just fall down. Not because you're tired, because you're pretending you're tired, or because you really are tired. Boom! You fall down you go. But then instead of being down and selling, he's fired up and he comes to the ground and he comes up and he's hurting, but he's full of fire. But he's still not. He's not just fire wanting to kick his ass. He's overcoming the obstacle that he was previously unable to overcome, which was the pain of like getting up and moving and fighting. But now he's up and now he's full of fire. And then that was like right when he fed around for.
We did something. We did a drop. We did a line. We worked to a corner.
Oh, after the line, you went to the corner. So you get that moment to sell. He goes to the corner. You whip him off, reverse, up and over, turning cross, 1, 2, kick out. After that kick out, guess what? You're not looking at the ref going 1, 2, what's up at 3? No, you're going everything he did to me earlier. Like you're at 1 on the kick out. There's the kick out, boom, and at that you're not going to the ref going, hey, that was 3, dude. You've just been fighting for 10 or 12 minutes, so you're just going back to that point in the heat where you were so hurt, but you still decided to get back up. So you go where it hurts, but it doesn't matter how much pain I'm in because I'm gonna get back up. You know, but you're not just like, come on, dude, let's do the next thing we talked about in the back. You know, it's like, hey, if you after you do that crossbody boom and you sell and you start to fire up, the crowd didn't even notice him quietly roll out to the floor, and then there's your dive. If you set up a dive in a regular match where you're just like, do a thing, go to the floor, do a dive, like, you know, when it happens like that, kind of organically at the right time, then that'd be something that fits in. Or what I do like right there is like you did whip off, duck 1, and then he like
something took a bump for me. Little dip.
Yeah, but right, it's like the same thing. Then it's down, but you don't want the comeback to stop. They were just getting behind you. The whole time they didn't get behind you, but stop. No, stop. So what do? The next thing I do is, I got him. But guess what? Oh no, now he's got me. Stops. Whip, reverse. There's one more for the good guys. Boom. And then now you're fully charged up. Now here's where all the energy, all the thing, now it all comes together. Then he feeds around, you hit him with that, drive, boom, 1, 2, kick out, everybody lays down because we couldn't force our full effort and we're going to sell for a little while and then work our way to the end.
What he just explained is just emotion and intent. That's what makes a comeback. Comeback is not a 1, 2, 3, 4 bump series. It's showing you've overcome the odds for X amount of minutes. And now you're giving them back everything you just took, and you're doing it in the most exciting way possible. I like how Matt said after that first cover in the comeback, you shouldn't go to the ref and go, come on, that was 3. As a babyface, why should I not do that?
Well, because the bell would have rung if it was 3. What are you, an idiot? Like you're in intense pain and you want to hurt this guy right next to you. So when it's over, you're just like regrouping and gathering, whatever, like everything out. Like in fact, if anything, like I'm always like shooting off when people would say something like, not right now, not now, I'm busy. Like, before you're like, yeah, come on. And there's points in the match where you're like, no, stop it. I don't need anybody. Like, no, I gotta focus here. And like, that's what you're doing there. You're in this desperate part of the match where, like, you might not be able to move fast or right away, but when you move, you're moving with the most determination because it's the highest threat level, it's the highest risk part of the match, and especially if it's a short match, you can just go to the risky stuff right away because when you make one mistake on the risk area and it's over for you or for him. So we're getting kind of to the end of the match. So you don't ever, like, people say, oh, don't do any risky stuff. Well, if you're doing high risk stuff, make sure you pay off the consequences in your match. Because now, here's your chance. You want to do something risky. Here, it's right in front of you. You guys have been fighting for so long. You couldn't beat him. He can't beat you. What do two desperate men do? They do dangerous stuff. And that's what people want. You know, like you worked for it. Now you brought everybody together. You got the crowd in. Once you get that moment, now you're like, clear for takeoff. You know, that's like ready to go hit that. Then you climb up to the top rope. You go for it. You do the top rope burger on a bang. You know, I mean, like just leveling up the wrist right there.
This is complex and beautiful wrestling psychology. We just threw so much at you guys. You'll probably need to watch this video back 10 times. But what Matt just explained there is he gave a reason as to why we go high risk. We don't just go high risk just because. I'm not just going to give him a flipping powerbomb into a knee, right? I tried everything else and that didn't work. So holy shit, now I got to pull out my very best stuff to get the best of them. That's when we get into that high risk territory where you start seeing some of those more upper level, more risky moves. But make sure when you're doing those, you're in there with the trusted opponent. If you're not comfortable doing it, don't take it. Make sure you're in there with the throw because you can and will get hurt. So if you're going high risk, always assess risk versus reward. You mad on that?
Yeah, you know that equation.
Oh, shit.
It's a good equation, risk versus reward. I mean, that's okay. What kind of sound will the crowd make, and what are my chances of being severely injured? Trust me, nobody wants to see you get injured, so most of the risks aren't worth it. And truly, the art, like, it's easy to go out of the ring, go beat up, go chop around, that's easy. It's really hard to sit in front of the crowd right here, with no props, no tools, no nothing, and make them at the edge of their seat. People are gonna be at the edge of the seat if you're like about to throw somebody on them because, well, anybody would be. But it takes a lot of skill and effort to make that happen just through here, like, you know, right here in the dead center of the ring like that. Yeah, I think a lot of people with wrestling, you just it's always about what you have coming up this next weekend. It's not about what you got, what am I going to do in 5 or 10 years from now. It's about preparing yourself to do your best for that, what you got coming up next. Because you can't really worry about trying to make it to WrestleMania or the Wrestle Kingdom in 7 or 8 years, or where's the next big promotion. But what you should be doing is focusing on your work that you have ahead of you and trying to do a good job for those people that you're going to be around, and kind of understanding your audience and understanding where you're at and what's expected of you and what would be like the best case scenario. Which is actually having people clap for you and buy an 8x10, something like that.
And saying, please come back.
Yeah, oh yeah, pretty special words.
That's right. We'll end with a little bit of Q&A, wrapping up a couple questions we missed, and maybe we have time for one or two questions. Question we missed earlier was adding character into your match. First, know who it is you're trying to present, what your character is, otherwise it's going to be difficult. I'll give you a simple example that's taught to me by Al Snow. I was a tag team wrestler guy. I didn't really have a personality, I was just a wrestler. I did cool wrestling moves. I went, yay, people cheered for me, and that was about the depth of my character. I developed a acid rock persona, psychedelic superstar, and really delved deep into that, and got some very high level work as a result of that. The first critique I had when I made that switch was that I had all this gimmick and all this energy until the bell rang. Then once the bell rang, I was just the wrestler. So you need to understand that that character continues throughout the whole match. So I'm going to give you an easy example, because unfortunately we don't have weekends to teach you guys this. Just think of Ric Flair, for instance. Ric Flair comes out as a nature boy. You might not know why he's a nature boy, but when they say he's a nature boy and Dirty's playing the game, you're like, oh, I get that, right? Something easy Ric Flair does. He'll hit something in his match. Flair will start doing a strut. He'll get on top. Somebody will go down. He'll adjust his tights. Woo! Ric Flair's the dirtiest player in the game. So maybe my opponent has me in the waist lock. The referee's not looking at the right moment. bam, there's the ball shot. So you want to watch somebody that really knows how to work their gimmick into their performance. I recommend studying Ric Flair. I'll give you a template of how to start utilizing that. In your next few matches, after you do everything, whatever the move is, whether it's a clothesline, a body slam, take a moment to react to that in your character, whatever it is. So let's say your character is, it's going to get silly, let's say your character is a disco dancer. If you do a drop kick, bang, pop up and do some kind of disco dance. I ain't a disco dancer, so it's not going to be very good. You do some kind of cool transition, you bust out a sweet head scissor. Here we go, back to whatever disco move is. I'm going to go into my next thing. So easy example I can give you just to learn this is do something, after you do everything, pause, let the audience digest it, and act like your character's supposed to act. Odds are you'll do too much and it'll be like way up here, and you'll have to rein it in. But it's better to have too much character than not enough. You can always pull it back down. Anything to add on that?
Yeah, I mean, well, it's a simple fact. Like, you're your character when you're outside the ring, but whatever your character is a wrestler. Because you're wrestling. That's how you end up in the ring. Like, that's what you are first. And then your character is what is the substance behind you. And that should always be coming into play in the match because it's everything about you. You shouldn't have to force it. It should just be right there. But, like, you gotta do wrestling first, character second, but the character just comes through because your character's a wrestler. So when you think about your character, even if you're like a yoga master, you're a wrestler who's a yoga master. Or even if it was the other way around, let's say you were a football player first, but you're a football player who's a wrestler. So you don't, every move doesn't have to be a spear, but people will get that if you do one. You know what I mean? But you're a wrestler, so it doesn't matter what you do as long as it's wrestling based. But then who you are as a football player, well, that might come in because you're known for your good defense or whatever, and you block the guy. You're able to incorporate it in your match, but you don't have to shove it down people's throats. They get it. Kids get it. If you look like a duck and you talk like a duck and you do a quack here and there, you don't have to do 50 quacks till you get to the ring, and then 60 quacks at your opponent, and then you just need like 2 or 3 when you get out. Like, so Delirious is a great example of this. And what you talked about is like how you were so high energy, and then you got the ring and it all slowed down. Delirious kind of like jumped out of the entranceway, but then kind of like moped around, but then ding ding ding, the bell rang, and he jumped into character and unleashed it because he didn't need to show it till the bell rang because Delirious is a wrestler who's also crazy. I mean, I can't fully explain nuance. It's like they made him wait. They wait. What's he gonna do? What's he gonna do? Why is he so quiet? And by coming so melancholy for a few moments, then having that explosion of energy, that there was a character change before as the match begins. And so that's something that people want to watch because they want to see the progression. They want to see you go from a guy who walks out ready to wrestle to a guy who got slapped and is starting to get mad to a guy who's hurt and has been slapped but refuses to stay down. Like, these are the things. Like, you're not just one character throughout your match. You're not like you're like me. I'm not one guy throughout the day. I'm Matt who wakes up and is tired. I'm Matt who is hungry. I'm Matt who's this. So you're the character. It's like it's your character, but like. What does the juggler do when he's been slapped in the face? Like, he ain't gonna be doing this, he's gonna be doing something wrestling. So it's like you always think wrestling first, and then your gimmick second.
Yes, range of emotions. That's a good point. A lot of young wrestlers will ask, what should my gimmick be? And I tell them the same thing Matt just said, is learn to wrestle first, your gimmick will come from there. Yeah, man, we'll give you 3 people to watch. Ric Flair, Randy Savage, Delirious. If you want to see how to incorporate a gimmick in the confines of wrestling and make it all blend together, those 3 are perfect to watch.
Yeah, we could find Delirious do a Macho Man match if you look up Delirious and Jay Lethal. That's one that's just like for the ages.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I'd recommend that one.
That's going to bring us about to our close here. Thank you, Matt. That was
great.
Awesome working with
Thanks,
you as
guys,
always.
for being here.
Any last minute questions that come across on the feed, we'll give you 20, 30 seconds for them. If not, we are out of here. You'll have this video for about the next week or 2, because I know some people are out in the UK, different countries, can't watch it right now. Take notes, feel free to go back rewind. If you have any questions, shoot them my way. If I can't answer them, I'll shoot them his way, and we'll make sure they get answered.
Yeah.
All right, thanks, everybody. go forward, kick ass. Remember, if you want opportunities, go out and create them yourself, because nothing in this business comes to you. It ain't easy, it ain't cheap. You do the work.